Hi everyone, my name's VIGOR, and today I'm going to show you a bunch of important items in Elden Ring that are essential to your playthrough. Getting off to a good start in Elden Ring is really important and can make or break your experience with this game. Because Elden Ring doesn't hold your hand, it can be easy to miss these really essential items. So I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff that's super easy to get and will make the early game way easier for you. If you find this helpful, please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing. It really helps me out. This first set of stuff are fundamental items that you absolutely need to get as soon as possible. They enable you to use basic functionality of the game, like crafting and summoning spirit ashes. The crafting kit can be bought from Kale at the very beginning of the game. A lot of people overlook crafting in this game, but it can seriously be really helpful, so make sure you get this thing ASAP. We're gonna use it in a little bit to make another really good item. If you've already progressed to a certain point in the game, then Kale will no longer sell the crafting kit, and you can instead buy it at the Twin Maiden Husks in the Round Table Hold. Make sure you get it because there's a bunch of craftable tools, weapons, and consumables that can help you a lot in your playthrough, including things that'll cure poison and do damage to enemies. Up next, I'm going to show you where you can find map fragments as you explore the world. Map fragments fill in your blank map screen so you can actually see where the hell you are. They're marked by these obelisk icons on the blank map, so keep an eye out for them. Generally, whenever you enter a new region, grabbing the local map is the first thing you should do. The map is usually located on a main road, which you also saw marked on the blank map. The map fragments are usually guarded by enemies, which can range from soldiers to giant bears to archers running around on wolves, so be careful as you're going to grab them. But if you keep an eye out for these glowing yellow obelisks, you'll find the map fragment underneath it, and when you pick it up, you'll be able to open your map and see the now filled-in map for the region that you picked up. The maps in this game are pretty detailed, so you can use them to find ruins, buildings, and other structures of interest, so make sure you explore using your map. Up next, we're going to grab the Whetstone knife. The Whetstone knife can be found in the cellar of the Gatefront ruins. It enables you to put Ashes of War on your weapons at any site of grace. If you don't have the knife, then you'll need to get an NPC to do it for you, which is a real pain in the ass, so make sure you get this thing. And here's a tip, all of the ruins that you find that are marked as ruins have a cellar similar to this one, so make sure you look for it whenever you come across some kind of ruins. Once you have the Whetstone knife, you'll have access to the Ashes of War menu at any site of grace. You can swap out your Ashes of War at will, so don't be afraid to experiment with new ones as you explore and find more. And if you want to enhance your Ashes of War with different abilities such as fire or bleed buildup, check out my wet blade video to find the rest of the wet blades. Up next, we're going to grab the Flask of Wondrous Physick. The Flask of Wondrous Physick can be found at the Third Church of Marika in northeast Limgrave. The Physick is really helpful for boss fights. If you check your map, you'll see that we get to the Third Church of Marika by following the road east through Limgrave and then north. So from the Gatefront ruins, where you grab Torrent and where we just grabbed the Whetstone knife, just follow the road to the east, and then take it to the north, and it'll take you straight to the Third Church of Marika. You'll find crystal tears throughout the world. Minor Erd trees, like this one found just to the south of the Third Church of Marika, are always a good place to check if you want new crystal tears, though crystal tears can also be found in other places too. The minor Erd trees should be pretty easy to spot because despite being minor Erd trees, they're still a mile tall, so, check them out when you see them and see if there's something cool underneath them. If you sit at a site of grace, you can mix any 2 crystal tears in your Physick, and when you drink it, they'll give you a buff based on the tears that you selected. There's 1 crystal tear that comes with the Physick when you pick it up, the Crimson Crystal Tear, and there's also 2 that you could find at the Minor Erd Tree just south of the Third Church of Marika. You can equip the Physick in any quick item slot or pouch slot, just like your red and blue flasks. Then when you drink it, you'll get the effects of whatever crystal tears you had mixed into it. In this case, I used the Spiked Crack tier, which increases the damage that I do with my charged heavy attacks, and I also used the Greenspell Crystal tier, which increases my maximum stamina. There's a lot of crystal tears to find, and the buffs they give you can range from increasing your strength by 10 for 3 minutes, to increasing all of your damage negation by 15% for 3 minutes, to making you violently explode, and more. You only have 1 charge of the Physick per life. However, you can refill it by resting at a site of grace, fast traveling, or dying. You also never lose the crystal tears, so you can use it as much as you want. Finally, we're going to go grab the Spirit Calling Bell. The Spirit Calling Bell can be obtained by fast traveling to the Church of Ella, where you met Kale, after you obtain Torrent. Rena will give it to you alongside the Lone Wolf Ashes. If she doesn't show up when you fast travel here, you can go buy it from the Twin Maiden Husks at the Round Table Hold, alongside the Lone Wolf Ashes. Having the Spirit Calling Bell enables you to summon the Spirit Ashes that you find throughout the world. And now that you have it, whenever you see the tombstone icon on the left side of your screen, you can summon Spirit Buddies to help you out. They usually cost some of your mana to summon, though they can also be free or cost health instead. And if you want to know everything about them, check out my video about Spirit Ashes. Now that we've got the fundamentals, let's grab some items that'll help you kill stuff. First off, we're going to buy the 3 cracked pots from Kale at the Church of Ella. We're going to use these things to craft fire pots, which are essentially like fire bombs from the Dark Souls series. Alongside the 3 sold by Kale, there's also one found in the Groveside Cave just to the north of the Church of Ella. You'll see its entrance is marked by a fire, so that should make it pretty easy to find. Once you go inside, there's a set of grace to grab, and there's a bunch of wolves here, so be careful of them, but directly underneath you on this little ledge, there's the cracked pot. Finally, we're going to head up to North Limgrave over by the Saints Bridge, where there's a merchant that sells another cracked pot. So from the Gatefront Ruins, if you follow the road to the west, that'll take you up to the Stormhill Shack, and then you head east along the main road from there, and that'll take you to this bridge, and on the other side of the bridge is the merchant. With the pot that you buy from this guy, you should now have a total of 5 cracked pots out of the 20 that are obtainable throughout the entire game. Cracked pots are used to make throwing pots, which can have a variety of effects, like doing different kinds of damage or causing poison buildup. You'll need to find crafting recipes for most of the throwing pots, but we start off with the recipe for fire pots, which requires a mushroom and a smoldering butterfly alongside an empty cracked pot. So in order to farm these things, we're going to head over to the War Master's Shack, which you can see is just to the west of the Saints Bridge. So again, from the Gatefront Ruins, head west, go up to the Stormhill Shack, and then along the road to the east, you'll find the War Master's Shack in this clearing in the woods. The shack has several crafting materials that you can farm, including root resin, erdleaf flowers, and rower raisins, but the main thing that we're here for right now is the mushrooms, which are right behind the shack. So rest at the site of grace, then go grab the mushroom, and then when you rest at the site of grace again, the mushroom will respawn, and you can repeat to your heart's content. We also need smoldering butterflies, and fortunately they're also pretty close by, so if you mark this point on your map up here, you can head north through the woods. You'll find this open field with a patch of wildfire and some magma slugs. There are 8 smoldering butterflies that are guaranteed to be here, plus if you kill the 2 magma slugs, they each have a chance of dropping a smoldering butterfly. So in order to farm them, what you're going to do is grab all 8 butterflies, then kill the 2 slugs, and make sure you check to see if they drop anything before you fast travel away. Then you're going to fast travel back to the War Master's Shack to get back there faster, and if you head back up to the patch, everything will have respawned, and you can repeat till you have as many butterflies as you want. Once you've got all 3 items, you can go to your crafting menu, and you'll be able to craft fire pots using 1 mushroom, 1 butterfly, and 1 cracked pot. Since we've picked up 5 cracked pots, we can hold a total of 5 throwing pots, so in this case I made 5 fire pots. The cracked pots are magical, so they're reusable. If you craft a throwing pot and then throw it, the empty cracked pot will reappear in your inventory, so you never run out of cracked pots. The number of them that you have just determines how many throwing pots you can carry at once. There's another fire-related item we can craft called fire grease. In order to craft it, you'll need to find the crafting recipe, which can be located in this camp just to the northeast of the Gatefront Ruins. On the east side of the ruins is a set of grace called Ag Hill Lake North, so make sure you grab that because we're going to come back here later. And then you're going to head straight to the north from there, and inside this camp of Cadence is the Armorer's Cookbook 1, which gives you the recipe for fireproof dried livers and fire grease. In order to craft it, you'll need root resin and a smoldering butterfly. So we already know where to get smoldering butterflies, and conveniently, there's also root resin at the War Master's shack. So from the site of Grace, you can just head immediately to your right, grab these 3 root resins, and then when you sit down at the Grace, they'll respawn, and you can keep grabbing them to your heart's content. Fire grease is a consumable item, so you can put it in your quick item slots or in your pouch, or just use it from your inventory. You'll need a buffable weapon in your right hand, and when you use the fire grease, you'll apply it to the weapon, and that adds 85 fire damage to it for 60 seconds. 85 fire damage isn't much, but it's literally just free damage. And there are also a lot of early enemies that are weak to fire, so if you have the crafting materials for it, and a weapon that can actually be buffed, because not every weapon can be buffed, then use fire grease, because why not? Do you like free runes? I like free runes, and it turns out there are free runes you can grab in a lot of different places. On the hill just south of the War Master's shack is a graveyard that has a bunch of golden runes. There are several graveyards like this throughout the game, and they're usually visible on the map. This one isn't, but a lot of them are, such as the ones by the Third Church of America or just to the west of Fort Height. This particular graveyard has balls that are just aching to explode all over your face, so be careful of them while you're grabbing these items, but there's several thousand runes worth of golden runes here, which is really nice for getting a bunch of early game items. So you can use them from your inventory, and if you press the Switch Display Mid button, which in my case is X as you can see on the bottom of the screen, then you'll be able to see the item description, which shows you how many runes each golden rune gives you. You can use them from your inventory, or if you want to do it faster, you can sell them to any merchant, and that'll give you the same amount as if you used it from your inventory. In the early game, you can use these runes to get a few extra levels, which you should put into your Vigor, or we can use those golden runes we grabbed to buy Ashes of War from War Master Bernal at, where else, the War Master's shack in Limgrave. This is a great place to get a bunch of extra tools that are really strong and allow you to expand your build and experiment with how you like to play the game. Using the golden runes to buy this stuff saves you the effort of having to farm enemies or kill bosses in order to get the runes for these things, which, as you can see, can cost a couple thousand runes each. Most of these Ashes of War are spectacular. In particular, I recommend starting with Impaling Thrust and Stormblade. Since we have the Whetstone knife, we can sit at any site of Grace and go to the Ashes of War menu to apply our new ashes to our weapons. Impaling Thrust can go on any weapon that's capable of doing thrusting attacks, which includes most swords, as well as spears and stuff like that. Impaling Thrust gets pretty good range. It can punch through shields. It gets what's called shield chip, so if an enemy is blocking, like this knight right here, then most of the damage from the attack will go through the shield, so that's really good for dealing with enemies that use shields. And it also does a shitload of poise damage if you put it on a weapon like a greatsword, which makes it really easy to get stance breaks on enemies so that you can go in for critical hits like I did on this troll. Stormblade can go on any sword shorter than a colossal sword, so this includes straight swords, curved swords, katanas, greatswords, all that stuff. Stormblade is just great all around. It gets good range, it casts fast, it doesn't use much FP per cast, it does good damage per projectile, and since it's fast, it has high DPS, and if you use it at point-blank range, you can also hit with the sword at the same time. While we're on the topic of Ashes of War and Graverobbing, there's an enemy you can kill which drops one of the most useful Ashes of War in the entire game. Head to the end of this plateau, which you find to the northeast of the War Master's shack, and you'll encounter this knight riding around on a horse. You can easily kill the horse using things like fire pots and Stormblade, and once the horse is dead, the knight will fall on the ground and become vulnerable to a crit. So once you do that, he'll probably die, and on his corpse you can grab the Ash of War version of Golden Vow. Golden Vow actually comes in 2 separate forms in this game. There's the incantation version, which requires 25 faith and must be cast with a sacred seal, and there's also the Ash of War version, which is what we just picked up. This has no stat requirements, and you can put it on any infusible weapon in the game. So I prefer to put it on something light like a dagger, but you can put it on your sword or whatever you want. I recommend you put it on a secondary weapon and keep an Ash of War on your primary weapon, because Golden Vow is a buff that increases all damage you do with every attack, including melee attacks, your Ashes of War, spells, consumables like fire pots, everything you do gets buffed by 11.5%, and it also reduces all damage you take by 7.5%, and this lasts for 45 seconds. So you can use this before boss fights or before encounters with stronger enemies to give yourself an advantage in the fight and make it a lot easier. Golden seeds are used to increase the number of red and blue flasks you can carry. It should go without saying that having more heals available is a good thing. The first golden seed we're going to grab is right next to the gate front, so if you head west up the road, on the corner here, you'll find a golden seed just south of the Stormhill Shack. Most golden seeds are found by these little phantom trees, so keep an eye out for them as you explore, but there's also enemies and other places where you can pick up certain golden seeds too. There's also a second golden seed we can grab in southeast Limgrave over by Fort Height. So this is located directly to the south of the Third Church of Marika. It's really easy to get to. You just go to the Third Church of Marika and then follow the road to the south. There's a lot of enemies in the fort, so make sure you grab the Site of Grace next to the cliff just to the west of it. And then once you have that, you can head up the hill toward the fort. And just outside of the front door, surrounded by a bunch of soldiers, there's another golden seed you can grab. You can access the Flasks menu from any Site of Grace. If you have enough golden seeds or a sacred tier that you can use to upgrade your flasks, then you'll see a glowing dot in the menu. You start the game with 4 total flasks, and you can use golden seeds to increase the number of flasks that you can carry. So in our case, we grab 2 golden seeds, and that allows us to upgrade it to a total of 6 flasks that we can carry. It does require an increasing number of seeds to keep upgrading your flasks, so keep that in mind. Speaking of the Third Church of Marika, we're going to head up there where there's a sacred tier that we can grab to upgrade how much each flask individually heals. So again, once you have a sacred tier, you can head to any Site of Grace, go to the Flasks menu, and now select Increase Amount Replenished by Flasks, and you can use the sacred tiers to level up your flasks. If you look at them, you can see how many tiers you've used total by seeing the number next to the flasks. Since we used 1 sacred tier, our flasks are now at +1. Unlike golden seeds, it only requires 1 sacred tier per level, and there's a total of 12 sacred tiers that you can get throughout the game. No, I'm not talking about having a marijuana cigarette, I'm talking about smithing stones. These are probably the most important item on this list. You can use smithing stones to upgrade your weapons. Upgrading your weapons is more important than leveling up your damage stats in this game. Most of your damage comes from weapon upgrades. You can find smithing stones all over the place, including out in the open world, such as these 2 that are on the Saints Bridge, as well as in most dungeons. A great place to start looking for smithing stones is Limgrave Tunnels, which you can see by this orange circle that's just south of the Gatefront Ruins. There's a hill that you can take to go down to the lake, and that'll take you right to the entrance of the tunnels. Whenever you see one of these orange circles on the map in a new region, that's a tunnels type dungeon, and those always contain a bunch of smithing stones. Higher level regions, such as Caelid and the Altus Plateau, will contain higher level smithing stones, and like I said, it's extremely important that you keep upgrading your weapons as you go throughout the game. So as you go into new regions, generally the first thing you want to do is look for the tunnels, there's usually about 2 per region, and go explore them to get a bunch of smithing stones so that you can upgrade your shit to be appropriate for the region that you're in. The miners that you find in Limgrave tunnels are resistant to most forms of physical damage. They're weak to strike, like from a hammer, but if you don't have one of those, then you can put fire grease on your weapons or use fire pots, and that'll thoroughly fuck them up. As you go throughout the tunnels, keep your eyes peeled for the smithing stones that are on the walls. They usually glow bright yellow, so they're pretty hard to miss, but sometimes they're in slightly out-of-the-way places, so make sure you check the different nooks and crannies as you go throughout the tunnels. In Limgrave tunnels, there are 11 smithing stone 1s, and combined with the 1 smithing stone that we picked up from the anvil over at the Church of Ella, or the smithing stones that you can get from things like this statue located just to the south of the War Master's shack, you can't break it yourself, you have to get a troll to hit it and break it. This contains 5 smithing stone 1s, as well as a smithing stone 2. Once you have 12 smithing stone 1s, you can bring them back to the anvil at the Church of Ella, and use that to upgrade any weapon to +3. This anvil only lets you go up to +3, but there's a blacksmith you can find pretty early on that'll let you go up to the max level, assuming you have the stones for it. +3 is fine for pretty much the entirety of Limgrave, so don't worry too much about it. And that concludes this guide. Make sure you use these items and get the most out of them. Pretty much everything that we picked up is compatible with pretty much every build. The fire pots in particular are really good at softening up Margit and Godric, and don't forget to buff yourself with the Physick and Golden Vow before you start boss fights. Let me know about any important items you think I missed down in the comments, and like and subscribe for more Elden Ring guides and content. Thanks for watching, and as always, my name is VIGOR, and I will catch you later.